YouTube frogs, welcome back to an updated complete guide, this time revisiting the Kamisato estate with the lovely and elegant Kamisato Ayaka. It has been nearly 9 months since both the first release of Ayaka and my original guide on her. In this post 2.6 guide, expect a much more concise and efficient version that reinforces what you may already know and also provides a crash course of necessary details regarding Ayaka. We'll be covering how she works and how she plays, potential weapon choices, constellations, artifacts, team comps, providing demonstrations of her in the Abyss. Please note that some of the footage used in this updated guide is from the original recording back when I still had Constellations 0 Ayaka. If you are new here, first off, welcome to the channel and appreciate you dropping by. I also stream fairly often on Twitch. Feel free to check out my frogs over there, link in the description. Alright, let's begin. But before we continue, a word from the sponsor of this video, Summoner's War. With over 110 million downloads on the Play Store and App Store, and a massive global community, Summoner's War is one of the most popular turn-based RPGs with one of the most successful mobile esports scenes. And now, Summoner's War is celebrating their 8th anniversary, and there are tons of rewards waiting for you to celebrate. During this event, you'll have almost unlimited monster summon opportunity to get the wish monster that you want. This main event is fantastic for you gacha lovers out there, and you can also earn 8th anniversary coins and trade them in to get tons of awesome in-game rewards. With over 1,000 unique monsters to collect and awaken, weekly in-game events, and fun dungeons, there's never been a better time to start playing. Summoner's War is available for free on Android and iOS, and you can download it now using the download link in the description below. Now, back to the video. First off, breakdown of my Ayaka and what my endgame investment looks like. We'll then go over my stat recommendations for you frogs to aim for. So mine is level 90 out of 90. She's Constellation 6 with level 8, 9, 11 talents. I'm running her with her signature Mistsplitter Reforged at R5, alongside a heavily resin-invested 4-piece Blizzard set that looks like follows. Now, these pieces grant me an immense amount of crit damage, alongside a comfortable amount of crit rate and recharge, however, lacking quite a bit in attack percent. My overall stats, barely 2,000 attack, 50 crit, 280 crit damage with 128 recharge. You notice that my attack percent, which is the green number here, is under 100% of the base attack, which is the white number here. I actually have an excess amount of crit damage here, and would benefit more from balancing these stats out by sacrificing crit damage for maybe some attack percent. So, with precise artifacts that roll really well, I sometimes sacrifice her crit damage mask for an attack percent mask. As an example, this recently acquired attack percent piece, due to its very high substat count on the crit damage, is able to provide a more balanced stat layout for my Ayaka. This is what it looks like with these stats. Better attack, sacrifice a little bit of crit damage, better recharge as well. However, this choice I generally would not recommend to the average player unless you have really good artifact quality. So then, that brings us to what stats would I recommend you aim for on your Ayaka. So if we take a look at the total details here, I would recommend between a 100 to 150% attack, which is the green number over the white number. For me, with this particular attack percent, I have about 130% of my base attack. 40 to 45% crit rate, because Cryo Resonance provides 15%, and then Blizzard provides up to 40%. So at 45 crit rate, with all of those intact, you have basically 100%. And then 200% or above crit damage, and then any extra recharge. I typically aim for 120 plus. For my non-4 Blizzard set gamers, I would suggest you aim for 60% plus crit rate, or ideally 80% plus with running a crit rate weapon like the Black Sword or Jade Cutter. And then general investment recommendations, level 80 out of 80, or ascending to 90 for her crit damage ascension stat. For the talents, I would recommend 668 because the burst is most important. The weapon, I would recommend minimum R1 Amenoma Kageuchi, with the signature Mistsplitter obviously being the best. Artifacts, aim for 4-piece Blizzard, force it if possible, 2-piece Blizzard, 2-piece Noblesse as a stepping stone. And then for Constellations, Constellation 0 is honestly perfectly fine for F2P. Constellation 2 if you're going for Constellations. Those are recommended stats that I recommend your Ayaka hit. Okay, so how does Ayaka work? She is a very straightforward character, and I would consider her to be the quintessential Burst DPS character. When her burst is available, she has an extremely high damage ability over 5 seconds, ready for lockdown enemies. When her burst is not available, Cryo-infused autos and charge attacks deal a little bit of extra DPS. And then her elemental skill is primarily an energy generation skill for her and doubles as a normal charge buff ability with her passive talent. That's the general layout of her kit. Let's cover some extra details. First, her dash. So this is a Cryo replica of Mona's dash and is used to infuse her autos with Cryo after you leave her dash. It also briefly applies Cryo to nearby enemies, which is useful for that initial elemental application to begin rotations. And with her Ascension 4 passive, if she hits an enemy with the Cryo application at the end, she refunds 10 stamina and also gains 18% cryo damage bonus. So basically, you want to be tagging the enemies to gain the damage bonus here. Normal attack. So this is used primarily during the downtime of her burst. Charge attack has a fairly nice AoE range and is a triple hit. Remember to dash prior to the charge attack to infuse these autos with cryo. So the strength of her charge attack multiplier is above average, and her kit provides built-in bonuses for it. Maximize strength for my whales out there if you have C6 Ayaka. The next section will go over optimizations for her normal charge attack combos. Next, her elemental skill. So this is a really simple ability. It deals AoE cryo damage around her, lifts lighter enemies up, and generates about 4 to 5 cryo particles on a 10-second cooldown. This ability also links with Ascension 1 passive, providing a 30% normal and charge attack buff after it's used. So, for the most part, elemental skill is an energy generation ability. Every 10 seconds, you'll probably be able to use it like 2 to 3 times between each burst, and the secondary use case is for buffing normal and charge attacks. That brings her to her elemental burst. So this is Ayaka's signature ability, and while it's most well known for its extremely high damage output when it hits, it's also infamous for users completely whiffing it. This ability cuts 19 times and explodes at the end for 20 ticks of damage over 5 seconds. At level 6, currently mine's level 11, so it's much stronger, but at level 6, the combined multiplier reaches 3,200%. It's 19 of these cutting blooms and 1 of the bloom damage. This is the highest total nuke multiplier on any ability in the game at the same level. It's comparable to Constellations 0 Eula, whose level 6 burst with 14 stacks, which is generally high-end or average, deals 2,400% damage. So this breakdown here, this ability, is why crowd control is so important to lock enemies before firing Ayaka's burst. Ayaka's burst is not a single hit, it's multiple small hits, but it deals an immense amount of damage during that time. So this ability has a 20-second cooldown and 80 energy cost, and as her signature high damage ability, energy is really valuable for her to maintain this DPS skill, either from herself or from her team. So when it comes to talent priorities, they are pretty straightforward. Elemental burst over the normal attack, and then elemental skill can be whatever you want it to be at. I would say at least level 8 on the elemental burst, if not higher, and then normal attack and elemental skill can be left at whatever suits your comfort. Quick segment on charge attack rotation for Ayaka. So this is mostly during the 20 to 30 second downtime when her burst is not available. You'll likely be swapping relatively frequently between teammates on your Ayaka's composition, and when you swap to Ayaka, she's not going to have her burst up all the time. So you'll probably use her elemental skill, dash cancel it, and then charge attack for a bit while the Ascension 1 buff is active. So here's typically what you might expect for general attack rotations. The most autopilot, but not particularly efficient, dash N1C combo. This is the one that I use because I'm lazy. So this involves a dash to infuse cryo, then you N1 into a charge attack, which is just holding the left click button, and then dash cancel that and repeat it. So this sequence takes about 1.5 to 1.7 seconds. And then extending the normal chain from N1 up to N4 is also very viable. Don't continue to N5 because N4 to N5 has a really long delay. So this is what dash N4C looks like. So in general, I would think that a lot of players who use Ayaka just want something simple. So that fits under the first combo, the dash N1C combo, which only uses a dash and a hold left click. If you extend from N1 to N2, N3, N4, they'll require more tap clicks before holding for the charge attack. But honestly, anything really works here. Find something that fits your playstyle. And if charge attacking is not your thing entirely, you can avoid it altogether, but you still might need to keep swapping to Ayaka to collect the majority of energy orbs that your team is generating, and also to activate her elemental skill once in a while. One great thing about her charge attack though is that it has really nice vertical and horizontal range, so that if you do decide to use it and incorporate it for your playstyle, it won't feel that clunky. Alright, so now a quick section on freeze versus melt when it comes to her team comps and burst viability. Most of you guys are probably aware that freeze Ayaka is the safe go-to and, quote, the meta composition that Ayaka players gravitate towards. The main reason behind this is due to Freeze synergizing incredibly well with ensuring Ayaka gets as much of her burst off onto the target as possible, alongside access to the 4-piece Blizzard set. With Melt, it's really tough to guarantee enemy positioning even when trying crowd control, and there's no freeze crit rate from the 4-piece Blizzard set. So as a demonstration, here's what Melt Ayaka looks like with Venti, who has the closest synergy in this department. So she was able to melt like 6 to 7 out of the 20 ticks. However, this is dependent on enemies and knockback to ensure the full value. If you use Kazuha or Sucrose here, the melts are much less reliable. They were limited to about maybe 2 to 3 times over 20 ticks of Q. So that's really a short demonstration on the lack of reliability when it comes to Melt Ayaka. For Freeze Ayaka, really simple and straightforward. It's easy to build compositions around as well. One Hydro unit as glue, and an extra Cryo alongside Ayaka for the Cryo Resonance, and then usually like a Nemo or something for grouping, debuffing, and possibly buffing, like Kazuha's case. Here's an old demo of the simplicity of Freeze with Barbara from patch 2.0. Next up, weapons. Going over my personal recommendations on weapon options, ranging from 3-star to 5-star, using some of my old testing when I still had C0 Ayaka. If you guys want to see completely exhaustive testing, head over to my original guide on the weapon timestamps. I used weapons that you honestly shouldn't even consider, but did it for completeness. For this updated guide, let's stick to my recommended optimal choices for most Ayaka players. 3-star, Harbinger of Dawn. This is a great low-cost weapon providing huge crit rate and crit damage bonuses on a 90% HP requirement. Running this weapon will cause your attack to fall relatively low, so an attack percent circlet over a crit damage circlet is recommended here. This is a great early game choice for newer or budget players. 4-star, Amenoma Kageuchi. This is the craftable Inazuma sword providing solid attack percent and flat energy refund by its passive. This approximately reduces Ayaka's energy recharge requirement by about 20% even at refinement rank 1. It's a great weapon that gets even better with refinements with regards to the energy recharge. This is my personal recommendation for any player without a 5-star weapon for Ayaka. 4-star Black Sword and 4-star Black Cliff Longsword. So these are your crit rate and crit damage weapon options, which I would personally view as stepping stones to the Amenoma or a 5-star weapon. The Black Sword's passive only benefits her normal and charge attacks, which is less valuable than just raw stats for burst damage. The crit rate does make it easier to hit a 40 to 45% crit in early stages of the game. However, it is locked behind the battle pass. Blackcliff Longsword. So this passive can be incredibly hard to maintain, especially with recent trends in the Spiral Abyss, making it a relatively inconsistent choice. Ayaka also kind of suffers from crit damage stacking due to 4-piece Blizzard and her Ascension stat, so this does lead to diminishing returns from this weapon's secondary stat. However, both of these weapons I would say are usable if you've already invested in them from past characters. Now, the other 4-star weapons that are not mentioned here are either too niche or inferior to the other options. Generally, this shouldn't be too much of an issue though, since Harbinger of Dawn is an easily accessible 3-star weapon. Honorable mention though to the 4-star Favonius Sword. So while this weapon is low strength, it can completely satisfy Ayaka's energy problems by itself. 5-star Mistsplitter Reforged. So this is her signature and obviously highest strength weapon option. The passive stacks are really easy for her to maintain. For a triple stack burst, simply include and infuse normal attack prior to firing. For an example, if you dash to infuse, and then N1 for the first stack, and then you cast your elemental skill into the elemental burst to generate orbs during the animation, you'll get all 3 stacks. Other 5-star weapon options. So we have the Jade Cutter. This is the generic stat stick for Ayaka, provides all of the 45% crit rate that she needs for the 4-piece Blizzard build without any substats from artifacts. Most players will usually encounter overcapping crit rate as a problem here, so I would view this weapon as more of a quote to start Ayaka build, and then phase it off when your artifacts are more developed. Aquila Vivonia. This is just a high base attack weapon with a 20 to 40% attack depending on refinement. So at R1 it's 20% attack passive. Just strong attack weapon. Summon Shaper. This is also an attack percent weapon stat stick, but it does require a shield for maximum effectiveness. This can be pretty tough to build around, so I generally wouldn't recommend it too much. Lastly, Skyward Blade. This weapon fully fulfills any energy recharge requirement for Ayaka, however, provides little offensive stats besides its base attack and the crit rate. I generally find that players finishing the builds usually tend to lack in the energy recharge department, so with strong artifacts, this weapon can hold its ground and also maintain uptime on her burst. So, any other weapons that I did not mention here, I generally would not recommend investing for Ayaka. Majority of players should have access to at least one of these, and don't feel bad if it's only the Harbinger of Dawn. There's a reason why it's still mentioned and able to compete with even the 4-star or 5-star weapon options even now. Alright, artifacts. So in my opinion, I would say there are 3 major choices for artifact setups. We have the 4-piece Blizzard Strider set for Freeze Ayaka, giving her access to 20 to 40% crit rate, basically for free. We also have 4-piece Emblem set, which sacrifices the 40% crit rate for more burst damage and a little bit of recharge. Then we have 2-piece Blizzard and 2-piece Noblesse set, which is kind of a middle ground between the two, but it helps in transitioning to 4-piece Blizzard. So any of these 3 choices work for Freeze Ayaka, with likely over 90% of you guys going for 4-piece Blizzard, which is the optimal choice. It has and continues to be one of the strongest 4-piece sets in the game, providing a Jade Cutter's worth of crit rate on its 4-piece bonus. The rare Melt Ayaka player can aim for 4-piece Emblem or 2-piece Blizzard, 2-piece Noblesse for standard burst damage increase. So, besides these setups, any of these 2-piece combinations are generic DPS options while you're working on something better. We have 2-piece Blizzard, an attack percent set from either Gladiator, Reminiscence, Vermilion, or Echoes, 2-piece Noblesse, 2-piece Emblem. Make sure to focus on the substats if you're doing a 2-piece combo. So for main stats, we have 2 defined layouts. We have the standard, attack timepiece, cryo goblet, and a crit damage mask. This is for most players. And then we have also attack timepiece, cryo goblet, and then an attack percent mask. So usually this is run with either Harbinger of Dawn, or if you high rolled an attack percent circlet with really good substats. Recently I've actually acquired this piece, so my Ayaka is actually running attack cryo attack. So for energy recharge, I would recommend aiming for 120% plus from the substats. If you can grab more, that's great. If your crit damage is above 200%, it's more worth to sacrifice that stat for energy recharge and attack percent. I know that can be hard though, because seeing really high crit damage allows you to flex on your friends. With an attack percent circlet and with the Mist Splitter, this is what my Ayaka looks like. She's currently about 2.4k attack, 45 crit rate, 247 crit damage, and 133 recharge. I'm pretty satisfied with these overall stats, with good recharge, well-balanced tier, and even with an attack percent circlet to increase her attack a little bit. Constellations. So in my opinion, Ayaka's strength at Constellation 0 is already a bulk of her power. Her additional constellations provide noticeable but not particularly design-changing increases. Constellation 1. So this is an RNG reduction of cooldown for her elemental skill, which slightly improves her energy generation rotation. For the most part though, it just does its thing in the background. You're not going to be paying too much attention to it. Saving you the math, you'll get about 1 proc per N1 charge combo. So I would expect about a 1 to 2 second cooldown decrease to her elemental skill depending on how often you auto. Constellation 2. So this adds 2 mini cyclones on each side of her main burst cyclone, dealing 20% of the original's damage. On larger enemies, they can all hit the same target for about a 20 to 40% damage increase. On smaller enemies, this constellation serves more as wider reach to hit more mobs. Constellation 3 and Constellation 5, plus 3 levels to burst and plus 3 levels to elemental skill. Constellation 4. So this is her strongest general use constellation, but it's only really achievable with whale power. Anything that her Q hits will have their defense decreased by 30% for 6 seconds, which is the entire duration of her Q. This is not physical or elemental resistance, but this does stack with other defense decreasing abilities like Constellation 2 Klee, Lisa's Ascension 4, or Razor's Constellation 4. Now, friendly reminder that abilities that ignore defense are different than defense decreasers, like Raiden Shogun's Constellation 2. Ignored defensors still gain the benefit, but they do not additionally stack on top of each other. So overall, this translates to about a 20% damage increase and doesn't suffer from diminishing returns if you stack more and more minus defense. Constellation 6. So this is Ayaka's Apple Watch. It's her flashy constellation. The 298% charge attack damage is like a goblet with 298% cryo damage. It is not a multiplier increase like I mentioned in my original guide. My apologies for the inconsistency there. The damage increase is actually pretty significant then, at about plus 150% on the charge attack every 10.5 seconds. This constellation also synergizes very well with ammo buffers like Shenhe. So, generally for constellations, we have Constellation 0, Constellation 2, and Constellation 4 as the thresholds. Constellation 6 is for Apple Watch gamers. Alright, team compositions. So if we're building around Ayaka, most likely we're building around her massive damage burst. Most common team compositions involve classic freeze with 1 Hydro, 2 Cryo, and then 1 Anemo. And then there's the rare Melt Ayaka. So here's an alright composition for that. Ayaka, Bennett, Venti with Viridescent Vener, and then the 4th slot could be either Xiangling or Zhongli for even more hard crowd control. Only consider this though if you have Venti. It's much worse without his crowd control. So for Freeze Ayaka, we first need the Hydro Glue. So best general purpose option, Kokomi. Damage amplification option, Mona. AoE synergy with Venti, Ayato. 4-star option, Xingqiu. Healer 4-star option, Barbara. And then we need a second Cryo character for Cryo Resonance. All-out DPS, Ganyu. More Ayaka buffs, Shenhe ammo. Survivability, especially if you don't have Kokomi, Diona. Team crit rate buff, Rosaria, but this is usually a little bit overkill on the crit rate. And then we have generic cryo batteries like Kaya, Sacrificial Bow Aloy, and Chongyun. And then finally, our friendly neighborhood Nemo for the 4th slot. So for buff and debuff, we have Elemental Mastery Kazuha. With this composition, we have one of the strongest IS-specific damage increasing for her, with Shenhe and Kazuha. For generic CC and debuffing, Venti. And then for generic debuffing, we have Sucrose. So other Anemo options like MC and Jean, I generally wouldn't recommend because their crowd control is not strong enough to support Ayaka's needs. So Zhongli is always a good option to slot in if not running the generic freeze comp. He provides hard crowd control with his elemental burst, has high survivability with his shield, and minus 20% resistance threat on that shield. If you are running Elemental Mastery Kazuha and Zhongli on the same team with Ayaka, then it's okay to drop Cryo and just run double Cryo. But you do lose the freeze crit rate buff and only get 20% from 4-piece Blizzard set. And then we have a specific new composition to maximize Ayaka's damage. Ayaka with Elemental Mastery Kazuha, Bennett, and then Mona with Thrilling Tales. You can opt for Witsith or Favonius weapons for extended fight options. Okay, let's take a trip down memory lane for some comp demonstrations. Good old times from my Ayaka was still Constellation 0. She's using the Amenoma Kakeuchi in this old patch 2.0 footage. And then we'll have one with my C6 Ayaka in patch 2.4 when Shenhe was released. Cue the music, Mr. Cope. And that about sums things up. With one of the strongest elemental bursts in the game, when Ayaka's given the right team setup, enemies have no chance. Hope you guys enjoyed this updated guide for Ayaka in version 2.6. A focus on reinforcing basic information along with reducing clutter. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. It's free and really helps the video get recommended and reach a broader audience. Thanks for watching, and I wish that everyone still trying to pull Ayaka the best of luck. We'll see you in the next one. Take care.